President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa expected to appear before the South African Human Rights Commission's hearings on last year's July unrest tomorrow. The testimony about the unrest, of course, we know that more than 300 people lost their lives. Several people have shared their testimonies so far with the Commission, including senior government officials and members of the public. An expert panel report into the July unrest as Cabinet must take responsibility. It says law enforcement failed to prevent the July riots. Well, for more on this, ahead of tomorrow's appearance and testimony of the President of the Republic, I'm joined in the studio by Advocate Tseliso Thipanyane, the man who's in charge of the South African Human Rights Commission. Advocate, good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming in this afternoon. I guess, can we just start there? Somehow it's going to be a big day in terms of the hearings tomorrow because the head of state will be appearing. What's the significance of that, in your view, as the Human Rights Commission that's investigating the July unrest?
Well, it is very significant on two counts. One, that, this unrest really caused a lot of harm in our country in terms of lives and the economy. And the President, as the head of the state, needs to share with the people of this country as to what went wrong and what could be done better to avoid a repeat of these issues, but also to ensure that those who were responsible for these events are brought to book. But also I think it's important that the President is able to come and show support and cooperate with the Human Rights Commission in terms of its constitutional mandate to promote and protect human rights. So it's actually quite important that, that the President will respect the Commission in its work and therefore sending a very clear message to everybody in this country, including government officials, to respect the work of the Commission.
Now, already some senior government officials have been there. We've seen the Police Minister, Bheki Cele, the now former Police Commissioner, Kehla Sithole. It's his last day today. We saw the former Minister of State Security, Ayanda Dlodlo, being there. We've seen the former Defence Minister, currently the Speaker of Parliament, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, being there. Now it's the President. They have been showing that respect. Are you satisfied?
We are satisfied. It was difficult at the beginning. But ultimately everybody is cooperating, and we didn't have to force anyone to come to attend the hearing.
So what was difficult about it at the beginning, if you may share with us?
Well, in the beginning, ministers were not available. That's why we had to keep on postponing. This is the third sitting now, Even the President was not available at the first time, but we are glad everybody's here and cooperating with
And tomorrow is the turn of the President. So far, the hearings have been going on for some months now. Would you say you are really succeeding in fulfilling the terms of reference of these hearings?
In many ways. I think the biggest objective really is to show the people of our country that there is accountability, that everyone has to account as to what happened, because clearly this was a failure of law enforcement. This unrest could have been prevented, and even if it happened, it could have been, responded to in a much more effective manner to minimize the loss of over 300 people. It's actually one of the biggest tragedies in our country since 1994. 350 lives lost.
Yeah, not to speak about the damage to infrastructure, property, and people's livelihoods.
And jobs again, where we're seeing yesterday that we still have a very high levels of unemployment. And therefore, the unrest definitely contributed to the high levels of unemployment we have today, because many of those businesses which were damaged, some of them are not yet in full operation.
The other side of accountability is consequence. Are your findings binding? I mean, whatever you're going to find here, the President is going to talk tomorrow as a head of state. He's going to be expressing whatever, and he's going to be responding to questions that the panel will be asking him. If you are saying, you as a commission, you want to show to South Africa that our public officers, our leaders must be held accountable, surely there should be consequence as well.
Yes. Section 181 of the Constitution clearly states that all organs of state should support Chapter 9 institutions, including the Human Rights Commission, and ensure their effectiveness and integrity. And therefore, when we do this kind of activities and we make recommendations, there's an expectation that organs of state will basically respect and ensure that our findings are respected. But secondly, in terms of our own act, the South African Human Rights Commission Act, it is a criminal offense for anyone to interfere or undermine the work of the Commission. And if you look at Section 18 of our Act, again, when we make findings, there is an obligation for government departments to respond to those findings. But thirdly, following the Constitutional Court judgment on the public protector, we are very clear that our findings are binding unless reversed in the court of law through a judicial review.
So your findings in this case at the end of this process would lead to some form of consequence, maybe possibly criminal as well?
We certainly expect that, but as far as criminal issues are concerned, that is the work of the police and the NPA. What we are doing in this hearing is to find out from both the police and NPA as to what is being done to find those who are responsible for this unrest, the ringleaders, and then let them face the might of the law. That's what we're expecting. Not only us as a commission, but the whole country is expecting this.
Is the president the last person to testify, or there will be more after him?
Well, the president is the last person to appear before a public hearing, and I think it's important that he comes last as the head of the state to tell the people of this country what happened under his charge. Where did things go wrong?
Okay, so far, now he's the last person tomorrow. How, in your view, has the hearings been going? Do you think you are getting into understanding why law enforcement failed the people of this country in July last year?
We're definitely getting a very good understanding, and of course the president's committee that which looked into the role of the security agencies also is helping a lot. But certainly the evidence which is coming before us, the police have also been coming forward, NPA, we are getting a sense, as to what happened. And of course, the police have also come out and raised some of their capacity problems. So, for example, we are told that there are very few water cannons. So if there are unrest in our country, the police won't have enough capacity to dispel those unrest without using lethal power and avoid what happened in Marikana. So we do need to ensure that, the police have better capacity to deal with public unrest and not kill people like it happened in Marikana.
Yeah, one of the most prominent things that stood out for many of us watching and observing the hearings, I would just like your view, if you may, was the fact that the police said they never got an intelligence report. The security said we submitted a report. That just didn't look good. As we sit here today, one minister is still in his portfolio, that's Bheki Cele, and then the other one has been moved. When you look at just that example, does it paint a picture? Are you getting a sense that there's also a lack of coordination in terms of law enforcement in the country?
Certainly, and it's actually quite worrying because in terms of Section 205, the role of the police is to protect this country from harm, whether it's internal or internal. And that's why you have crime intelligence. We need to preempt and prevent these incidents from happening and not to deal with them afterwards. It's much more difficult to deal with them afterwards. And therefore, would like to know, why was there a failure of intelligence? Why were these issues preempted and prevented?
Will the president, as head of state, who appoints these ministers, who appoints the police commissioner, as currently is going to be seized with that after Ketlas Tole's exit, will the president also be tackled on those issues by the Human Rights Commission? Will those questions be directed to him tomorrow?
Certainly, he is a last man standing, so to speak, and therefore he has to tell us, as the president of this country, with an obligation to protect all of us, to say what happened. We have the police, we have the intelligence, we have the army. Why did we lose so many lives?
Okay, after tomorrow, what's the next steps now as you begin to wind down these hearings into the July unrest? Because you've told us now that there has to be accountability and your findings are binding unless they are taken on judicial review. So this is a very important process that you are undertaking as a Human Rights Commission. So after tomorrow, what should we expect will be the next steps? And by when will your report be finalized?
Well, we're hoping our report will come out as soon as possible, hopefully by the end of May. But also after the hearing, there's another important process of social cohesion. We need to heal our land, we need to heal our people, because certainly, we saw from the media images that ordinary people got involved, got sucked up in this nonsense, so to speak. And we need to ask ourselves, why did our people go and do this kind of things, go and loot and ban businesses which are a source of their livelihood? So many people are now unemployed, and we need to understand this. And that's why we're also looking at the underlying causes behind the unrest and also what needs to be done to ensure that never again do we see this kind of a thing. 50 billion rands lost under the current challenges, where we have high levels of poverty and unemployment, is really a massive setback. But also it undermines the rule of law. The rule of law is one of the founding values of our Constitution. So if people ignore and disrespect the rule of law, what does this say about the new South Africa we want to establish?
Advocate Tseliso Thipanyane, I know you're very busy today ahead of tomorrow as you finalize preparing to hear the testimony of the president, that's Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, about the July unrest. Thank you very much for your time.